Oh yeah, get excited, cause I'm back, baby. It's Jay the Admin. This is the Admin Group podcast, and yeah, man, we're about to get back into it. This is episode 2, and today I want to talk to you guys about my journey. The journey of IT. It's such a vast world. You can go this way, you can go that way. I'm going to tell you guys which way I went. So, first, I want to talk about just starting in IT. So, in IT, you really have to start at desktop support. Depending on what you're doing, and IT is very broad as well. If you want to become a developer, you don't really need to start in desktop support. But let's say if you're trying to get your foot in the door, you want to get some technical experience specifically, or if you just want some experience, you're 18, 16, 17, 18, never had a job. That's a good place to start, because if you're going to an employer, chances are that employer has no idea about development. So you go to them, you say, hey, I fix computers at Best Buy. All right, cool. You can work for me and make my website. For some reason, those two things connect, but again, that's IT. That is IT. And for me, I started in desktop support. To be honest, I still kind of am in desktop support, working at an MSP. But really, that's one of those fields that never really go away. As long as there are people working these computers, they will have problems with these computers. And it is what it is. Even I have problems with my computers, and I have to put on my own systems admin hat. But yeah, so desktop support, I started working for my high school as a teacher's assistant. That's definitely a really good hack if you want to get started early. Just work where you go to school if you're going to school, or just try to get in where you work at if you want to make a lateral switch or just a departmental switch. Yeah, it's definitely a good one. The next would be the certs versus college. I know there are a ton of YouTube videos about this, a ton of philosophies, a bunch of people telling you, yeah, go to college, go to college, go to college. You should go to college. You should go to college. You should get a degree. If you don't have a degree, you'll be homeless. But that is not the case. So, just to give you some background on that, I have been in hiring processes for IT managers, IT directors, as well as desktop support people who just do desktop support. So I'm aware of what qualifications and what type of people are looking at these resumes and what they're looking for. And for starters, I'll say the certifications give the person a clear understanding that you most likely know what you're talking about. So those certs will get you in the door. Just like a computer science degree. Computer science is extremely vague. There's so many subsections of that. But if you have that, then most likely you get an interview because it's impressive. And that's the whole hiring process, the perspective process. You want to impress, you want to stand out. And honestly, there are different ways of going about it. So, in terms of certifications, as long as the certification is relevant, I think you have a great chance of getting that job, especially if you have multiple. For instance, I was in the hiring process for an IT manager at a certain company, and this IT manager had a marketing degree, but a CCNA, and also tons of experience at an MSP. So her marketing degree was almost like you could have left that off. I mean, that means nothing. It's cool you have that. It never came into play as I worked under her. But I'm also sure, going to college, the skills that it teaches you and meeting deadlines, uh, just being professional, all of these different things play a role into just the culture of a job, and especially a managerial role. As I am climbing the ladder myself, I'm seeing that it's not so much how well you can subnet, or how fast you can set up a switch or a router, or how secure can you get a network, or how fast can you make a network. After a while, it's more about how well can you manage the people who can do that. That's the person who makes the most ultimately. And I would say college plays a role in that, but again, the experience, it really overshadows the college experience, or the not the college experience, the college degree at some point. If you do display the professionalism and the organizational skills, and how to delegate tasks and manage people, I think your chances of getting one of those higher roles are a lot higher, and they're not going to say, hey, you need to have an MBA to run this network. I don't think that that's how it works for everybody. And again, my background is I studied computer science, did not graduate, got, I don't know how many certifications I have now, probably nine, maybe 10. A plus, network plus, security plus, CCNA, Aruba switching, Juniper design, Mist AI. There's some more in there. I won't even get into it. But a lot of certifications to certify my knowledge and to really push me along, because I had been in the world. So professionalism, I get that. Understanding hierarchy in a business, I get that as well. So after a while, it was more my knowledge, because the person who's hiring, and most likely most IT teams are under finance, or they're different tiers of IT. You may be at a bigger company where you have a whole team of network engineers, a whole team of security analysts, a whole team of developers. So there's most likely a manager who really knows that role, and you just really need to sell to him or her. And yeah, I would say that as long as you know what it is you're supposed to be doing, you can do the job role, you display professionalism, you're likable. That's also a big thing. You got to be likable no matter what job you're going for. You could work at Dairy Queen or Wawa. You still have to be likable for somebody to say, you know what, we'll pay you for your time, because they could pay somebody who's not as good and have a good time while they're around them. So, yeah, you definitely want to know the role, know how to play the part, be good at it as well. But as far as a degree or a certification, it's more so about, do you know how to do what you say you can do? And whatever's certifying that knowledge is up to the hiring person's discretion. I mean, absolutely. You could have no experience but a computer science degree. Those guys get jobs. You can have no degree, no certifications, but tons of experience. Those guys get the jobs as well. So it's more so about really knowing what you're doing. Which brings me to my next topic, specializing versus being a jack of all trades. So again, I'm able to remember off my head about 7 certifications. I feel like there's a few more. I got a lot recently. But you don't, in the beginning, I'll say, it does not help you to specialize unless you're doing it at a really high level. So for instance, if you want to become a Python programmer, Python programmer does not necessarily need to understand routing. They don't necessarily need to understand how firewall ACL works. They don't really need to understand anything outside the realm of programming and how programming works. Even the security, the secure ops of whatever program they're writing. They don't always have to know all of those things if they're doing it at a high level, because if your code's proficient, it's quick, chances are you're getting hired by a company who has those people who can they're specialized as well. So, in the beginning, I would always say, and how I did it, A plus, network plus, security plus. Let's get to know the lay of the land. Let's figure out which directions I can go in. And for me, I do love networking. I've started in it since I was 16. Yeah, 16 in college, and no, in high school. So I started when I was 16, and after the A plus, network plus, security plus, I knew that I wanted to go for the CCNA next, because I mean that's just what you do if you're a networking guy, really. so so I went ahead and got that, and I dabbled and looked around at a few other certifications to kind of figure out where I would want to go. And because I'm at an MSP, if you work for certain businesses, they may they may want you to get certain certifications for their benefit, because if you've ever noticed, if you walk into Best Buy, you don't see Juniper switches, you don't see Cisco switches. I mean, you may see a little cheap router, wireless access point, firewall all in one, but that's not what a company is going to use. They're going to go to a reseller, and that reseller is going to have a certain relationship with the manufacturer. And basically, how that works is it only takes, so for instance, an iPhone, they say, only costs like $200 to make, but they sell them for 1,300 starting off. And how that works is Apple commissions their factory to make thousands of them, and at $200 a unit. They sell those in bulk. So you got 1,000 as $200,000 of cost, and they sell them in bulk to a reseller who may pay $300,000. So now you have all of this margin to work with because you have this partnership with the manufacturer. And usually, with that partnership, there are certain stipulations. So, for instance, you may need a certified engineer. You may need a certain number of certified engineers. You may need to participate in creating white papers, participate in just the trial and error, beta testing. I mean, there are a lot of different things there that you get involved with once you're talking about partnerships, and that's more so if you own one of those type of companies. But if you're working at one of those companies, it helps you, it benefits you, because now you're getting these certifications which are paid for by the company because they want to get their product sold. So you're getting the free certification vouchers. They're paying for the trainings, and I mean legitimate trainings that will cost thousands of dollars anyway. So in a situation like that, you are gonna get a lot more certifications that may not necessarily, relate to what it is you're trying to do with your life or where you're trying to go, but ultimately they do help you. They do help you. Even if you do become that jack of all trades, the jack of all trades that knows the latest and the greatest. And again, in the hiring process, it's all about selling yourself and making yourself seem more more valuable than you actually are. I mean, you really have to sell yourself in an interview. That's just what it is. So having all of these certifications, it looks good. It helps you. It helps you grow within your career. But at some point, you have to specialize. I don't know any desktop support analysts, engineers, IT analysts, basically guys who are at the bottom tier of IT who are in the latter part of their career. And if they are, chances are they haven't had much growth because you're doing the same thing. You know, you may have the same responsibilities. Sure, uh, they may get new equipment. They may go from Broadcom switches to Cisco switches. So now you know Cisco switching. But if you're still in that same position, a switch is a switch is a switch to the C-level staff. You know, they may not see that benefit, or they may not see that time that you put in to get to that point. So that's why you really have to specialize and say, okay, I'm not just regular desktop support. I am collaborations. I do VoIP. I do video conferencing. I know all of the industry leaders' hardware. I understand how these things work. I understand the protocols behind them, the networking behind them. You really have to drill down at some point to know exactly the ins and outs of an area to really be valuable to the point that we want in IT. I mean, let's be honest. You get a job, you get a job to make money. You don't get a job just to be the smartest guy in the room. You don't get a job just to flaunt the certifications that you worked hard for and paid for just so that you can tell people you have them. That's just not how this works. So you do have to specialize somewhere down the road. Cybersecurity, DevOps, programming, enterprise networking. Enterprise networking is, if you like routing, if you really like networking, enterprise routing is where it's at. You will be tested. Um, so for me myself, I am a networking guy, but I do lean more towards security. When I got my Security Plus, well, not only were companies getting hacked left and right, and there were data breaches everywhere, so I felt like there was a need for it. There was a need, and I could foresee, if I was rubbing my crystal ball, I could foresee that industry growing because I mean, when companies get hacked, people get sued millions and millions of dollars. Millions and millions of dollars. And these are companies who are trying to make a profit. They have shareholders to answer to, they have staff to answer to, they have families to answer to. So they will do whatever it is they need to do just to make sure their data, their sensitive information is kept private and kept safe. For instance, I met with a guy who is he's a CIO, Chief Information Officer at Wells Fargo, and he works from home, works about 4 hours a day, and makes $250,000. Yep. Let that sink in. 250 every year. 4 years. He's a millionaire. In terms of revenue. Gross revenue. But still, that's $1 million. I'm sure we all want that. I mean, that's the goal. Again, that nobody is working just to get out of the house. Maybe when you're retired, but not at this age. Nobody's working just because they love being at work so much. That's not how it works. So, for me, I do lean more towards cybersecurity. I felt like the need was there at the time. I mean, we're talking last year, but even now, it is still there, and I foresee that continuing because hackers are getting younger. And to be honest, hacking a network is a lot more fun than securing a network. So, yeah, cybersecurity is really where I am pointing my trajectory. Now, of course, it may sway. The company that I am with now may have certain needs. I may need to fulfill a certain role, which happens. When I was an IT analyst at the company prior, I started just doing desktop support, but then eventually they got a Mitel VoIP system, and I had to take that over. because the desktop support guy is the guy people see the most. So they're not gonna they may not even know who the IT director is. So I had to learn VoIP at that point, which was very intimidating, very hard once I got into it. But it's possible, you know. These things aren't they're not impossible to learn, you know. If there's a need and you can fill it, that makes you very valuable. Now, whether or not a company can understand that value, that's another story. But it still goes on your resume, and somebody will. Somebody will see the value in that. Somebody will say, "Oh wow, we have this Mitel system that we don't understand. Let's go ahead and pay this guy whatever the going market rate is for that job, and bam, we got a solution." You know, they're looking for solutions. They're looking for people who can do what it is they need and do it efficiently. You know, so yeah, the again, I am I am looking to go more towards cybersecurity because that's what I like, but also DevOps. DevOps is a huge thing. Since the A plus, I'd say almost every exam I've taken has a little bit of development in it. JSON, Python, um, honestly everything. PyEZ, which one was that? PyEZ was Juniper, but there's so many companies that are moving towards automation. And one thing I learned in the Juniper design certification was that the selling point to these ultra powerful I I wouldn't even call them switches or routers. The networking equipment, software defined networking equipment, like virtual switches and routers that run from a virtual machine on a VMware cluster. These type of computers are much more powerful than your standard switch or router because, excuse me, not only do you have a much better processor, you have much better. I don't want to call it underlay, but the software that controls these things are a lot more customizable, a lot more. There's AI involved. Of course, there's so if you work in IT, you're familiar with syslog, and you're familiar with the tons and tons of events that a computer, a network can generate. Now imagine if your computer also correlated them all so that you're not looking at thousands of events. Now you're looking at 10 events. This one thing happened 10,000 times today. This one thing happened 100 times today. And then they tell you how to fix it. That's the other part of it. And these solutions are for the bigger companies, the companies that have multiple sites, the branch offices all around the world, and they can't hire an IT director for all of them. So they hire some lower tiered guys, or just outsource that work to an MSP nearby or an IT shop nearby, somebody who knows how to reset a switch, how to install a switch with zero touch provisioning, which if you're not into IT right now, that's definitely something you're going to hear about. If you are in IT, I'm sure that's something you've heard about. Zero touch provisioning. I've heard it from APs all the way to switches and routers, but straight out of the box, they're already provisioned. You just got to plug in all of the ports and the Ethernet connections to, I guess, other switches or your host servers, whatever. That type of automation is designed to is designed to decrease the labor cost. I mean, that it just is what it is. The computer or the virtual machine that's running the network It's never going to ask for a raise. It'll ask for licenses just about every year, but that that price doesn't change as much as, say, somebody's salary. You're talking about minimal human error. You're mitigating a lot of human error there. In IT, things are very technical, very black and white. If you, for instance, if you configure a port wrong, if you configure an uplink port wrong, it doesn't work. It's not going to work just because, or just because you're a good person, or just because it likes you. That's just not how it works. So to minimize the human error, there's more uptime. So now the network's working better because there are less people involved. And the less people who are involved, hopefully the more money for them. But the smarter those people have to be. It's not going to be the guy who, for instance, Juniper Mist AI. On their switches that have Mist AI, they have the ability to tell you if the connected Ethernet port is, if the port is bad or if the cable is bad. It will correlate the messages. It'll correlate the data rate, the throughput of that connection, recent changes, and it'll tell you, hey, something's going on with this port. You should look at it. Now, that doesn't take hours. Well, if you were troubleshooting a network issue, a throughput issue, to get to hardware, which again is the first layer of the OSI layer model, because it is the first, usually we don't consider it initially in our troubleshooting. So you're talking about, again, minimizing human error. So DevOps is a big thing. I say all of that to say DevOps is a big thing. It will take some jobs. It will. Like, it is a selling point. You buy the system, you have to hire less people. You don't have to depend on PTO, off days, family emergencies. This system will work day in, day out, all day, every day. You don't have to worry about it. So people are going to be leaning towards that. And as we've learned with all technology, as time goes on and it's developed better and more efficiently and cheaper, it's going to be adopted by everybody. Eventually, we'll have AI learning APs and switches in our homes, and that's just how it's going to work. It'll all be software defined, probably with our internet service provider, and all of a sudden a Bright House guy or a Frontier guy or whatever internet service provider you have no longer has to come. Just, is it plugged into the box? Well, the box is on, so it should work. And the box will tell you if the port is bad. The box will tell you exactly. You have one pair that's damaged in your cable. You have to replace the cable. So that's the future. And I don't want to get lost in the evolution of technology. In IT, we don't have the luxury of learning learning networking, sitting back and depending on that knowledge for the rest of our career. It's one of those things where you have to learn every day. Every time there's something new, you just have to know, because if not, your network will be very slow and very insecure. And again, hackers are getting younger and they're getting better. So do due diligence there, because DevOps, no matter where you're going, I mean, I guess if you're going into development, then you're already in that field. But if you're security, if you're networking, if you're, let's see, if you're just systems administrator, just handling provisioning of new workstations, handling update pushes, patches, all that good stuff. Eventually, it will be automated, and they're working on it because, again, if I can not hire this person who wants $60,000 a year and instead implement a system that costs $20,000 and $1,000 a year, if I'm a business, I'm going to go with makes sense. So that's that. I definitely don't want people to be under the impression that IT is you get a certification, you get a job, you're good and you're set, and that's it. No, you got to continue to get better because everybody around you is getting better and the competition is tough. I will take your job. Yes, you. I'll take your job. So, um, along with that, as you're specializing and you're growing, there are different ways to go about that. Of course, you can gather more certs, like I'm doing. uh, government government clearance, security clearance, which I still haven't cracked that nut. Honestly, the jobs that I've seen, I feel like those jobs pay a lot more. But getting a government clearance, I spoke to a hiring manager about that, and they said that the company almost needs to the company needs to sponsor you. I'm not exactly sure on that. It was a while ago when I applied for that job, but so if you know, definitely let me know so I can be clear for the future. But yeah, when you're getting those government clearances, that opens your career path up to different things. Yeah, I mean, I isn't the military like one of the most heavily funded organizations in the U.S. government? So hey, get some of them dollars, man. Get some of them dollars. And then last but not least, doing it for the money versus doing it for the gratification. So, as I was told once, IT is customer service. No matter if you work for a company, they didn't buy the computer. No, it is still customer service because when their computer doesn't work, when their Outlook folder isn't loading, when they can't see emails 20 years back that they have archived, or when their add in is slow, you got to fix it. You got to fix it. You can't tell them to shut up and walk away or shut up and deal with it. You got to fix it. And you don't have to fix it with a smile, but if you're good at what you do, and if you enjoy what you do, you will do it with a smile. And people notice that. People understand, okay, if I have a problem, I can go to this person and they'll help me. There's no pushback, there's no I, again, if you've ever worked in IT, I hear people say day in and day out, every day, I know this is a stupid question. I know this sounds stupid. I don't want to sound stupid. Um, it, I'm probably the only one that this happens to. No, everybody has all the same problems and they all say the same thing and they all feel stupid because they may not know how to they may not know that modern authentication causes loops in Outlook 365. And the only way to fix that is by creating registry entries. That is not something the average user is going to know, or the average admin. Luckily, I've dealt with that so many times in the past month or two. I don't know what's going on with that, but yeah. So helping people, it does absolutely gives me gratification, and that is why I started in IT. But ultimately, it's about the money, man. Gotta make that money. Gotta make that money. I don't know a person who would work for free. I don't. I don't. I know plenty of people who would do minimal work for unlimited amounts of money. I mean, that would be everybody. I wouldn't call that. I wouldn't call that lazy. I would call that being real with yourself. It's called being real with yourself, and just understanding that we live in a capitalist society, and for you to have freedom, for you to have privileges, you gotta have money. You gotta be getting paid. You gotta have something to offer. Like, even if you're at a restaurant, tipping somebody tipping somebody when you first walk into the restaurant can get you a better seat. Tipping the waitress when they give you the drinks can ensure that you get great service throughout the time that you're there. Tipping them at the end may, I don't know, get you a free dessert. It happens. It happens, you know. So again, that is our society. That is a lot of other countries out there society as well. Not too many communist societies or socialist societies out there, but again, you have to depend on yourself, and IT just a is just a career. It's just a vehicle to get you to that freedom. Um, yeah, I wouldn't mind working in IT, you know, until I can't work anymore. But me waking up at 7 to go to work and then staying there until 5, that is not something I want to do for very much longer. That is not the life I want to live, because ultimately I enjoy my wife more than my work. I don't know anybody who feels opposite about that or would rather be around their coworkers rather than their family. I mean, that's stupid. We go there for money. We go there for money. Yes, we fulfill a job. We may enjoy the people we work with. There may be an ounce of fun, but still, we're going there for money. If they ever decided to take away our salary and or our hourly wage, and now we're just volunteering to be at this place, we drop off pretty quick. I mean, everybody would be homeless. So again, I I want people to very clearly understand the importance of knowing your worth, no matter where you are. When you're in IT or anything technical, you do have to put in a lot of work. You got to study a lot of hours. You have to put in a lot of time. You have to dedicate yourself. You know, studying for these certifications outside of work takes away even more time from my family, takes away even more time from my wife. So for that, you have to make sure you're being compensated, because we we work the job for freedom, but in the process of gaining that freedom, we're giving up freedom. So at the end of it, you better be freer than when you first started. So let that be a lesson. Be much more freer than when you first started, because again, it all depends on you. And if you stick with me, if you stay in the admin group, I'm gonna lead you to the promised land. I'm gonna lead you, and when I say lead you, I'm gonna lead you, because I'm on that same path right now. I gotta go to today is Sunday. I gotta go to work tomorrow. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So again, understand where you want to go. Hopefully, you know, hearing my journey and hearing my thoughts on just getting started and knowing which way to go in terms of college, in terms of certification, you know, 4 years versus a year to focus on a certification. I mean, what that can actually do for your life and what's normal in the IT industry, because this isn't law. This isn't medical. This isn't something where you have to be board certified. Well, I guess a certification is kind of like a board certification or whatever, but you can also let it expire, and depending on how good you are, people may not care about that. You know, you may not need to keep your A plus or or your network plus valid for your entire time in your career. I mean, it's one certification. That it's not that imperative that you have it be valid throughout your entire career. You can get better certifications and impress people that way, rather than have a valid A plus from 1980. It just doesn't make sense. So again, hopefully I helped. Hopefully this helped, and you know, I was able to give you guys some good insight. Again, if there are any topics that you'd rather me talk about, if there are any topics that you just want to hear, anything you've been wondering, shoot me a message, give me a comment, you know, shoot me an email, hit me on Teams, Don't hit me on Teams. That's just for work. But just hit me up. Let me know. I'm Jada Admin. I love you guys. I love you for listening to me. I love you for being here. And I will be back with another one next week. This is the admin group. And yeah, man, this is for admins. This is for us to get ahead and to get paid and to be free. So you guys have a good week. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.